Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Wednesday morning to you all. Hope you guys are doing awesome out there this morning, having a fantastic start to your day, and a great week out there so far. Here to bring you the latest on what's going to happen weather-wise for your Wednesday. We're going to talk about all that, talk about the low 48. There is going to be a shot at strong to severe storms. Not as high as yesterday, but there will be a chance. The heat is raging on, of course, across areas of the eastern U.S., especially New England today, and we'll give you some good detailed information on that. But if there's something going on in the tropics, now that we're, getting deeper into hurricane season, still very early, but getting deeper now, if there's something to track and there's something going on, especially bringing impacts to the lower 48, how we're going to do these videos through hurricane season, if there is something to track, is give you updated information on that first, and then break down the forecast when we're speaking on the morning videos for the rest of the lower 48. So that'll be kind of our flow of things. Like I said, if there is something to track for the foreseeable future, and there is something to track, there's something going on right now. As soon as we're done with this, and there's not really anything going on out there, we'll kind of go back to the normal flow of things. Then at the end of these videos, we'll kind of give you an update on the tropics or whatever else is going on for the future. So with that being said, that's exactly what we'll do in this video. We'll go right into an update on what's going on out there with PTC1, still not a named storm, but certainly it's still forecast to become one, but there's a chance it might not. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And folks, I just want to say thank you so much for people who have bought things off the Amazon wish list from my wife. She has a teacher wish list. Of course, if you don't know, my wife finished her degree of being an elementary school teacher, and she officially got a job a few weeks back at a local elementary school here in Central South Carolina. She's going to be a fourth grade teacher. She's very excited. She's also very nervous. There's been a lot of people that's mentioned, Mitch, are you ever going to you should really think about putting like a wish list up for upgrades for your channel, things that you desire for your channel. I've just never taken the time to do something like that. And I'll be honest with you guys, I'll always keep it personal. I don't feel 100% comfortable doing something like that. Even though, I don't think that's the worst thing ever. People want to support you and help you. And I know y'all want to support me, and y'all already do by viewing it. But it is always kind of weird me asking for like money for a storm chase or something like that, asking for donations for something like that. I feel like there's more important things out there in the world we should be giving money to. But I certainly appreciate everybody who's already bought stuff off it. If you don't know what I'm talking about, check out the latest post in the community tab. I did a post on there about it, so check that out if you're interested. If not, no worries at all. There's already been several things bought off the list from you guys, so just want to say thank y'all, and I'm going to reach out to all y'all personally somehow if there's a way to do so, if I haven't already, over the next couple of days. So thank y'all so much for that. It just goes to show you how much of a family atmosphere we have here, and I appreciate y'all and love y'all so much for that. My wife does too, that's for sure. So if you guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put those in the comments below. Let's get rocking and rolling. I got this weird itch on my eyelash. I don't know why. So if you see me scratch my face a ton, well, it's because my eyelash itches. So let's get going here. So you see this massive spin out in the Bay of Campeche on the Gulf of Mexico? That is our very disorganized PTC1. Stands for Potential Tropical Cyclone 1. And I'll be honest, I wish they'll just name this thing a tropical storm, just so I could just say Tropical Storm Alberto. But, if it does not technically have that defined low-level circulation, which it does not, then they're not going to do that. And there's other qualifications for it too. But the fact that it is so large is why it's so disorganized. It cannot really latch on to one dominant spin, if you will, low-level spin, dominant piece of energy. So it's just this massive, quite literally a gyrum, just spinning around out there. It's still technically part of the Central American gyrum. So it's latched off of it, and it's still slingshot in the same kind of impacts if it was dubbed a tropical storm, but it's still very disorganized. But you can see the spin. You really can. You don't need on bifocals or anything to see it. It's certainly there, and it's a pretty gnarly spin, but the convection is very void of anything, and where the technical center is, which is probably somewhere into here, you got a big explosion of convection right here, and then you got some kind of pivoting this way. But regardless, the impact stayed the same. See all this, these colors right here? That is showers and storms, and all of this is getting pushed into that Texas coastline. And this is pushing water up against the coastline. This is bringing strong winds, a stout onshore flow, and still bringing a lot of impacts. We're still watching this, guys. This is our developing little weak tropical wave that could do something along the southeast coastline. Still a chance to develop. We'll give you a little bit of information on that as we move forward. But that's what's going on right now in the tropics. Let's continue to break down update information. So this is the latest cone from the National Hurricane Center. This update was made around 4 a.m. Central Time, so there'll be another update. In fact, there might be an update now. Let's see. There is not. I don't think that they'll make this a tropical storm in the next update, but it is still forecast. You see where it says S right here? It's still saying, hey, this is still forecast to become a tropical storm, which would be Alberto sometime in the next few updates. But guys, I'm here to tell you, it might not even take a name. It might not. This thing has remained disorganized over the last 24 hours. Looks about the same as it did yesterday. So I explained this yesterday. A lot of people, I think, are confused about the cone. They think that you see this white area here, the impacts are only going to be in this cone. This is exactly where the center is going to be, and we're exactly where the center is going to be. That's where you're only going to see the impacts. That's not how this works. This is just the actual center of low pressure, the center of the storm. This is where it's forecast to go. Outside of this entire area right here, you can still get impacts. I mean, in this case, the potential tropical storm force winds in this kind of orangish yellow color right here, we'll call it orange, extend 400 or 500 miles out from the center to the north, to the northeast, and to the northwest. So this system is highly lopsided. It's all of its action is on this side of the storm, but the center, wherever center of this storm is, wherever it is, which they're saying it's right into here, is, you know, right here. But you got a ton of impacts up here too. That's why you don't have tropical storm warnings extended further south. It's all extended right where the center is going to make landfall, points north, all the way almost up to Houston. So that just note, these systems can be very lopsided, especially weaker systems. A more stronger system is more composed. It's more kind of symmetrical. All the impacts are spread out from the center more evenly, if that makes sense. With these lopsided tropical systems, that's not the case, and this is very lopsided. All the impacts are on the northern side, and that's why I'll try to explain it again. This orange area, this is where current wind field estimate. So tropical storm force winds, they're saying it extends out about this far, which is very, very far, guys. Sorry, I'm sure I'm making your eyeballs go crazy there. Keep pushing the wrong thing. But that is the latest cone, still expected to make landfall in the Mexico coastline. If we look at what's going on right now, all this moisture, remember the center's down here, way down here in the Bay of Campeche. All the action, not all of it, but a lot of the action is getting shoved into the Texas coastline as I speak right now. It's a very rainy start from, basically the entire Texas coastline. A lot of heavy rain starting to move in between like Houston and Corpus Christi, all the Bay areas, South Padre and Padre Island getting some rain. Victoria is starting to get some rain, and this is really starting to make its way inland, and it will over the next 24 hours. So this is what's going on right now. Deep areas of convection pushing in. You're going to have some gusty winds with some of these heavier showers and storms for sure. So this is what's going on right now. If we go back and look at the HRRR model, it's handling this, I think, quite well. About as good as you can expect model guidance to handle it. So as we continue to make our way through, remember, this is in Eastern time, so back this up 1 hour. 7 a.m. is what this really is for Central time. And we go on and take this out to about, lunchtime, 1 p.m. Showers and storms continue to pivot, but it looks like it starts to cut off up here in Houston, but you could still get it for sure. But places like, Matagorda Bay, San Antonio Bay, Victoria, trying to name some areas, and I'm not going to lie, I'm cheating. I'm looking at my Google Maps down here at the bottom. Corpus Christi, South Padre Island, all these areas, Brownsville will start to get more deep convection over the area throughout this morning, meaning some of these showers and storms could produce winds in excess of 45 to 55 miles per hour. It'll certainly look like a tropical storm out there, but you're not going to get consistent winds of 45 to 50 miles per hour unless you're like right near the center for just a very short amount of time, which would be more so near Mexico. But you'll continue to get this, and we'll get to this afternoon, really late this afternoon to this evening. I think the heaviest of the rains really push San Antonio, really points south in this area. Very heavy tropical rains into here. saturated column, of course, because it's a tropical air mass. We'll be dumping tons of rain. Several inches of rain could fall in a pretty short amount of time. And then the main kind of chunk of the rain moves into northern Mexico. You start to get some rain, trying to get all the way to San Angelo, San Antonio, getting a little bit of rain. I know we need some rain up here. And along the coastline, you're still getting that stout easterly flow, east to west flow. Still probably bringing some storm surge on. But the shower and storm activity becomes a lot less widespread, very sporadic into the overnight hours. And then by the time we're waking up tomorrow morning, we're still dealing with these tropical downpours, but I think things start to simmer down somewhat. So rainfall between now and the rest of this entire event, you get up to Houston, maybe an inch or two of rain. Get down to Corpus Christi, you certainly could get a lot more rain. You could get maybe 8 to 9 inches of rain. Victoria, half a foot of rain. But it's really once you get a little bit inland, you got to watch out. What is it? Kingsville, a little bit up Highway 77. This little area right in here, they're saying that's where the epicenter of the worst rain is going to be. Okay, but, Brownsville, 5 to 6 inches of rain. You head on up the road, you look at San Antonio, 2 to 4 inches of rain is possible. Less once you get into Austin, but a little bit of rain expected up there. But a lot of rain could fall from this, guys. And you look at, let's go on and zoom this a little bit closer. This is between now and the next 3 days. Yeah, 3 days. In the red area, that's where you have at least a 40% chance. At least a 40% chance of flash flood guidance being exceeded within 25 miles in a given location. So, I would say if you live basically from the Matagorda Bay, point south, that is your highest risk area of flash flooding, for sure. So, yellow area, a 15% risk of flash flood guidance being met. And then we look at winds, guys, and they've actually increased the wind forecast. First off, I want to note, if you live, let's say like, what's that, George West, Alice, point south, at 30 to as much as 40, 45 mile per hour wind gusts with some of these higher and stronger kind of bands that move in is possible. But if you get into these bays, like I said, San Antonio, Matagorda Bay, just any of these little bay areas for sure. What is that? The Baffin Bay. If I butcher some names, I do apologize. But in some of these little bay areas, some of these little islands, you guys could get 50 to 60 mile per hour wind gust. And remember, the flow of this, it ain't going like this. Wow, the arrow is much bigger all of a sudden. Cool. It's going more so like this. Well, it is going like this. So it's pushing the onshore. You got an onshore flow. So it's pushing water up against the coastal regions of Texas here. Even a little bit of storm surge up into Houston. Okay, the Galveston Bay up here. Galveston. Why do I struggle with that word? Galveston. I want to put an ing in it so bad. But anyways, stronger winds in some of these bay areas, especially once you get to the central Texas coastline point south. So be aware of that. Storm surge, Galveston Bay. Galveston. I might just have to sound it off really slow like I'm in elementary school for you. Galveston Bay, 2 to 4 feet of storm surge possible. In fact, that the water could be adding up now a little bit further down. Just 1 to 3 feet of storm surge. So definitely more of a push right up here, right against these coastal regions. So be aware of that. If we, kind of move past this, look at everything else out there. You notice how it has the X where it says 1 kind of embedded in that yellow area down here. That is PTC 1. That's what we just discussed. But there's an area around it that has nothing to do with that has a yellow area with the yellow slashes going in between. That means there's a 30% chance of more tropical development within the next 7 days. So this is for something totally different that's going to come from something very similar, the Central American gyro. And this could develop in the same exact area that PTC1 is in right now. And then we're still watching this. This has a 20% chance to develop sometime over the next few days. And I know I need to reiterate this a little bit more. When I say 20% chance to develop, you're thinking development of what? I had a question like that in Facebook, and I was like, I can't get irritated with that person for asking that because, I really did not be clear. But a 20% chance to develop into a tropical depression or tropical storm. Pretty much a bona fide tropical cyclone. okay, which is typically a depression or higher, and that has that low-level circulation. So we still have these areas to watch, so we will watch them. And, speaking of that little wave, let's back this up into Thursday morning, which is tomorrow morning. That wave is right here. See this blob of green? I mean, it's easy to get mixed up with all these other blobs of green, but that's our little wave. Little weak low. Gets probably pushed, brings some beneficial rains, maybe to the coastal areas of Georgia, low country of South Carolina, North Florida, as we're getting more so into late Thursday night and a Friday morning. I don't know how much action this will bring, but it certainly, if you're tuning in from North Florida, South Georgia, Southeast Georgia, maybe the low country of South Carolina, this could bring some kind of a heightened risk of showers and storms. But then you see this big blob of green down here. That is our next area of interest, area to watch, and it does pop off another low pressure right here, and this certainly could try to develop into the Bay of Campeche again this weekend, and we will watch this, and then it kind of makes landfall in the Mexico coastline again. I don't think we'll get as much of a big push of rain as far north into Texas with this, but you certainly could get more rainfall from this sometime this weekend. After that, guys, there's not a whole lot showing up, even in the crazy GFS that likes to, throw these crazy hurricanes in the mid to long range. I mean, it doesn't really do a whole lot after that. It looks like we might enter a little bit of a quieter period. And I would say we go back a few weeks back and we were looking at the time frame we're in now. We were thinking there was going to be a period of rising air in the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico that was going to give us a chance of tropical development. And I would say for the most part, it was dead on. It really was. We look at the European, same thing. We watched this little wave right up here later this week into this weekend, bring some beneficial rains maybe to somebody. I don't think it's going to bring any huge impacts. And then we watch this huge broad spin once again, deja vu in the Bay of Campeche, Southern Gulf. And, if the Euro is right, it does bring more rain to South Texas than the GFS is showing. And one thing I am noticing too, and we'll speak on this more, this really don't have nothing to do with the tropics, is it looks like we enter a better pattern for showers and storms in the southeast as we get into early next week. So hold on. I know we got some developing flash drought conditions coming, but that's an update on the tropics, guys. Let's go on and scoot on over to the lower 48. So we've already talked about all this action going on in Texas right now. This is because of PTC1, our tropical system down there. All this action right here is from an upper trough that's dug down to the middle of the country with a cold front right into here, southwesterly flow, enough lift in the atmosphere, plenty of moisture, continues to drive, just a lot of shower and heavy rain activity, some embedded thunderstorms, even some flash flood warnings in the panhandle of Texas and Oklahoma. But you're definitely waking up to a soggy start north of Amarillo, rain starting to move into Amarillo, Woodward, Oklahoma, Dodge City, a lot of rain all the way up to Topeka, Kansas, a little bit of rain north of Kansas City or around, and then this is extending northeast all the way through Iowa, an area of organized showers, making its way through southwest Wisconsin. Even some storms kind of heading north out of the UP of Michigan. We got a little bit of shower activity directly across the Mississippi Valley. The west quiet, the east pretty quiet, some isolated downpours in western New York, but all outside of that, yes, the immediate west and east looks pretty quiet right now. Excessive heat. Speaking of watches, warnings, and advisories, excessive heat warnings in this purple color up here. We could break an all-time record high in Caribou, Maine today, which is 96 degrees, I believe. I think your forecast is 96 degrees. An all-time record high is possible. So, I mean, not just a record high for that day, an all-time record high. That's totally different. That's much more, I guess you would say, impressive. Heat advisories for just about every single county in the Northeast. The only areas that are spared from that is kind of the immediate coastal regions where you might get a little bit of a breeze. Excessive heat watch is up. These might get upgraded to excessive heat warnings in the coming hours. Excessive heat warnings around Pittsburgh, for example. So very hot up here. The ridge is really maximizing today and tomorrow, but I do think temperature dramatically lower as we get into this weekend. Excessive heat watches for the Valley of California. And we have flood watches and tropical storm warnings in this burgundy colors, tropical storm warnings, flood watches in this green. Everywhere else, nothing too crazy. We do have some excessive heat watches up for the UP of Michigan and the far northern sections of Wisconsin, some hot weather on the way. So as far as the excessive rainfall outlook, we do have that moderate risk down here today for flash flooding, being a little bit more elevated for sure. But then we got the slight risk here for really what's going on right now. A lot of heavy rain falling here, which means there's a 15% risk of flash flood guidance being met within 25 miles in any given location. So be aware of that. And then we look at the Storm Prediction Center outlook. Watch out for a level 1 out of 5 risk of severe weather here. Not a big deal. Marginal risk. There is a marginal risk down here. Remember, there is a 2% risk of a tornado. It's very possible for a spin up down here. One thing I should have showed you when I gave you an update on this was the updraft velocity swath. But there is certainly a chance for one of those tropical spin ups. Typically, they're very short lived, but they're going to be possible. This is definitely what you would call the dirty side of the tropical system, and it's basically going to be tail whipping South Texas. So be aware of some tornadoes, embedded spin ups with some of these kind of outer bands that pivot through South Texas today for sure. But we are running a pretty large lower end risk of severe weather today. Just stretches from Caribou all the way down to Columbus, almost down to Cincinnati, includes Detroit, Cleveland, Buffalo, and everybody in between in the dark green. So there is a risk. No thunderstorms expected for the southeast today, unfortunately. Speaking of the southeast, we'll take a look at what the radar could look like as we move into the next few hours. Maybe some showers push into the low country of South Carolina, maybe as far south as Savannah, Tybee Island. If you're lucky down here, you might get some showers, maybe a storm. Easterly flow over the state of Florida could get some showers and storms going, especially in southwest and western Florida. You could definitely get just some occasional showers and storms, and nothing too crazy to cancel plans over or anything like that. But if you notice, there's a lot of moisture hanging out here in the southwest Atlantic. This is that little spin we got to watch, and as we are getting into the overnight hours, maybe a little bit more convection starts to work into North Florida. Jacksonville, St. Augustine, you guys could get some downpours overnight. Might, go to sleep with a dry ground, wake up with a wet one, and then we'll get into tomorrow morning. Most of the southeast, though, is pretty quiet. It's just maybe the coastal regions of low country of South Carolina, Georgia, down to Florida. Florida's certainly just going to get sporadic downpours today for sure. The northeast, a lot of thermodynamic energy, meaning it's going to get very hot. It's going to be very humid for some of these areas. We get into this afternoon, it doesn't look like there's a whole lot going on. But then bang, once we get into like late afternoon, a strong to severe storm possible around Detroit. Just south of Lake Erie into southern Ontario could get some storms today. Some storms could pop up around like Albany, New York. Occasional downpours or storms around the Finger Lakes. And we'll watch out for more organized area storms kind of right into here in southern Vermont. Watch out, Robin. New Hampshire, the Berkshires maybe, maybe some storm activity. This will diminish with loss of daytime heating. And we could get some more organized storms to get going like in the middle of the night. It's like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. Watch out, Erie up to Buffalo. Very possible to get some storms here on either side of Lake Erie. And then we're waking up to a very stormy start here. It looks like maybe in northern lower Michigan. We'll see what those do as we get deeper into the overnight hours. But the temperatures today, pretty hot. I will note though, not as hot as we were thinking a few days ago. But, Boston, low to mid-90s, just outside the city, probably where you're away from that influence of the cool waters of the Atlantic. Probably mid to maybe upper 90s. Southern New Hampshire, guys, pretty wild stuff. Upper 90s, somebody might sneak and hit 100 degrees a day. Very hot day in New England just in general, especially once you get into these valley regions. Albany will be very hot, well into the 90s. I think what impresses me the most, though, is Maine. We head on up to Maine here. Caribou going for 95, 96 degrees. This is ridiculous for Maine. It's probably very hot in New Brunswick, too. I don't have the temperatures up for you guys. But I'm sure you guys will have to let me know. I know I haven't talked about you much. Trust me, when we get deeper into hurricane season, you guys will be talked about a lot more. In winter, of course. Summer, spring's kind of just different months, of course. But very hot in Maine. Very hot. Well above average. I know I got a couple viewers from some folks in Maine. I know I got one loyal viewer. I'm not sure of your name. I think you live in western Maine. Let me know how hot you hear that it gets in some of these areas in Maine today. So the south central U.S., some pretty active weather. We have the ongoing heavy rain right now in Kansas, western Oklahoma, and the panhandle of Texas. I think that this will lose some steam throughout the morning hours. Could have some lingering showers and storms. It could pivot through eastern Kansas into northern Missouri and Iowa. Of course, we have these tropical downpours down here and storms that could produce a quick spin up. Be aware of that. I do think if you live in New Mexico, some big storms could fire up in New Mexico today. Really, I would say east central New Mexico up into the Front Range of Colorado. Definitely be aware of some storms firing up in this area. They could grow up scale, kind of move further into eastern New Mexico, and then weaken. But then we'll watch for some storms that will try to fire up in eastern Kansas again. Maybe some lingering energy in the atmosphere will kind of juice up the chance for some of these storms. Some of these storms could drift out of New Mexico into southeast and southern sections of Colorado. And then just sporadic pop-ups in Kansas is very possible into the overnight hours. So we'll definitely watch for those storms in New Mexico and Colorado. They could pack a punch later on this afternoon. And then we dig a little bit further north. That don't make sense. Dig north. But we move a little bit further north into the north-central U.S. Just a steady southwesterly flow moving from the southwest to the northeast. So this will continue just to bring a flow as we have a stalled boundary. So it's stalled, which means that whatever showers and storms develop day after day kind of continue to pivot over mostly the same areas. So we're going to get this area of showers and storms that kind of move through southern Iowa. It's going to bring some rain, northern Missouri, and then eventually this will start to get into areas of the upper Midwest. And we could get some sporadic showers across South Dakota, some cooler showers, definitely some rains into the overnight hours all the way into tomorrow morning, waking up to a lot of shower activity across this area right in here, maybe some storms across the Great Lakes and upper Midwest area. And just a little bit closer look at that area. Here it comes, some storms in southern Wisconsin, very possible. I don't think these are going to pack much of a punch, but there is a risk these could be strong to severe. And then, Milwaukee, for example, this is around 6 to 7 p.m., maybe a stormy evening, stormy dinner time for you guys. Some storms could be around. And then we start to get into deeper in the evening to the overnight hours. We'll just kind of watch for sporadic downpours, but maybe a more organized area of shower and storm activity in Wisconsin, starting to move into the UP and Michigan and to lower Michigan as we were waking up tomorrow morning. Not a big deal with these, but definitely just more rain kind of pivoting through this region. The western U.S., it's getting quiet. Just saw some crazy videos out of Wyoming and Montana over the last couple of days with the snow falling. I saw one video of this, like a high school football team practicing or something in Montana. And it was just snowing in mid-June. Just sounds wild. It really does. But the immediate western U.S. is much quieter today. Some sporadic downpours, rain showers up there in Montana and the northern Rockies possible. But in general, it is pretty quiet. The energy source is kind of cut off, and we're not going to see much today. Temperatures, very hot in the eastern U.S. We've kind of already talked about this. Another day, very hot day in the Ohio Valley. The lower elevation areas of West Virginia. Kentucky will be very hot. Tennessee will be very hot today. 90s and just very hot. Very, very hot in the Northeast, but typical summer type stuff. We've been blessed down here in the Southeast with the heat so far. We're actually getting a little bit of dry air. It's typical early summer type temperatures, but the humidity really has not been that bad here in the Southeast, at least the Carolinas I can speak for. Dew point's only in the 60s. So it's actually been pretty pleasant in the evenings. It really has. But you move out west into the central U.S. also. Definitely cooler. 60s and 70s dominate the central and northern plains behind this cold front. But the air mass is beginning to moderate somewhat. So temperatures are beginning to rise somewhat in the western U.S., starting to creep back into the 80s and 90s in the Valley of California. Starting to see more widespread 100s down here. So starting to warm up in Nevada, Utah now. I think that'll be the continued trend for sure. Last thing I'll mention is there is a risk of strong to severe storms tomorrow in the Northeast. There's a slight risk already up, level 2 out of 5. So we'll dive into that in the next video. But I do just kind of want to let you guys know and be aware of this. I think kind of one last really hot day for New England will be also greeted with a more heightened threat of strong to severe storms for some of these interior sections of New England. So let's be aware of that. That's all I got, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in. God bless all y'all, and y'all have a wonderful Wednesday.